talking to Dan about earlier in the week. It just seems like Poly is a team that knows how to win, a program that knows how to win. Heck, they're the most winningest program of high school football in the state of California. In Southern California, rather. Of course, they was out up north. But, this is a team that finds a way to win just in odd ways. It's just a winning program. I see them winning this one.
All right. Well, I picked Sterling, but obviously if we're talking about Long Beach Poly, and if they move on, I do have them squeaking by Cresty or Santa Margarita. I think it would be Cresty, but reason being, they proved they can win in a playoff game in the first round, and that's where I'm questioning. Maybe I'm just being a hater, Nick.
Well, you can't hate the resume for Long Beach Poly. The last team to beat the defending state and national champions here in California is Long Beach Poly. They have the resume to beat whoever they take on in round number 2, which would push them to a semifinal matchup against, of course, St. John Bosco. Meanwhile, other round 2 action, Corona Centennial should very well square off against Mater Dei High School. Winner would take on the Bishop Amat J. Sarah game. We'll start with Corona Centennial and Mater Dei. It should be over there in Corona for over in Mater Dei for round number 2. Your guys' thoughts about that game?
Mater Dei beat Corona Centennial by 20 points in week 0 of the high school football season this year. This would be week 12 of the high school football season. Centennial's had 11 weeks to improve, but they still won't be able to take down Mater Dei.
Defense wins championships, and Mater Dei is known for that. Corona Centennial really hasn't matched up well against the great teams, which Mater Dei is. Mater Dei has only gone down to Bosco, and James Farrow, another great team. That's why they're number 3. Mater Dei win.
Well, Mater Dei would take on the winner in the following round of Bishop Amat and J. Sarah in a game that really should pack points by the bunches. I have J. Sarah squeaking by a very, very interesting ball game in round number 2, Chris.
I agree with you. I think J. Sarah finds a way to squeak by. I think talent takes over in this one. Bishop Amat, they lost to Santa Margarita. No knock on Santa Margarita, but I think J. Sarah on another level than the Eagles with Santa Margarita, and I got J. Sarah moving to the semifinal for an All-Trinity League matchup.
All-Trinity League, J. Sarah, Mater Dei. Again, thank you all for joining us on the National Sports Radio Station. Chris Sylvester, Dan Gadino, Nick Rice joining you. Round number 3, the Lions and the Monarchs. That would put you in a win, and you're in against St. John Bosco. Round number 3, who do you guys got in that game? We'll start with Chris.
I got Mater Dei. I just think Mater Dei, they've been there, they've done that. Bruce Rollinson, he's been to a plethora of semifinal games in the Pac-5. This is J. Sarah's first ever playoff appearance in their high school's history. It's a Cinderella story that'll come to an end against the Monarchs.
I think Mater Dei is going to shock them at how hard they're going to get hit. J. Sarah is not used to these late playoff, late round type of games, and Mater Dei is known for this. And so Mater Dei will come out because of that hard-hitting D.
Well, didn't Mater Dei beat J. Sarah by 7 in the Trinity League season? No, J. Sarah won, but it was a very, very tough contest, and I'm sure you all could agree the Monarchs didn't exactly bring the A game that they do in the postseason. Meanwhile, St. John Bosco, they rallied 5 consecutive playoff wins before hosting, I guess you could say, the state championship game. Meanwhile, they'll take on Long Beach Poly, another illustrious playoff team. The Jackrabbits bring forth an illustrious resume, and guys, I think it'll come right down to the wire.
Yeah, I think so. I think St. John Bosco and Poly should be the game that we'd all hoped for. And back in 2012, when the Jackrabbits took out the Braves, Josh Rosen was nothing but a sophomore, and the game ended on an interception that he threw on 4th and 8 in Poly territory. And I'm sure that taste doesn't sit well in his mouth, sit well in the mouth of any of the St. John Bosco coaches. They won't let it happen again. I say St. John Bosco will win that game by 2 possessions.
I got St. John Bosco taking that one. If Long Beach Poly gets past the first round, Long Beach Poly against Bosco is the dream matchup. I think it's a matchup everybody's been waiting for years. It's the matchup everybody wants to see. But I think the talent gap is too much at Bosco. Bosco wins it.
Well, what was a dream in 2012, and Chris mentioned it, turned into quite the nightmare. In that ball game that Bosco played in Veterans Memorial Stadium in the playoffs, it turned into an extremely intriguing weather game filled with fog. I'm sure they feel exactly like the Philadelphia Eagles did in the 1980s, losing to the Chicago Bears in the Fog Bowl. That's the high school football's version of that. But nevertheless, we believe the Braves will take on the Monarchs in the win and go in scenario for the CIF Pac-5 division. Your guys' thoughts, and we can elaborate even further because I think this is a game that we could be looking at overtime with this year, given that in the regular season it came down to a field goal, or shall we say a fumble towards the end.
Well, I think, in the rematch, I think, it's going to be even closer than a 3-point game. I think you might be spot on when you say this will definitely go to overtime. And, it'll be another great game at Angel Stadium, certainly a better one than we saw last year. Still think St. John Bosco gets it done, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if Mater Dei was able to get their revenge on Bosco and finally beat the Braves for the first time in 2010.
Mater Dei is just 3 turnovers away from
3 turnovers. Jeez, that doesn't even sound close. But it was close.
Yeah. But no, it actually is. I mean, let's say no turnovers of the ball against Bosco this time. I think they have a great chance. And so, the talent gap again, I think it's just way too much for Bosco. And Bosco will pull away.
Well, St. John Bosco, who last year won the Pac-5 division, has an opportunity to make it 2 straight, and they'll do so starting Friday night as they take on Cabrillo High School. Really, this is in high school football. Understandably, there are teams in here that shouldn't, I'm sure, be in according to their talent, but boy, overall, this will be a playoff for the ages, and I think I'm just going to be extremely thrilled with how this thing is going to come down, and we'll all have the call starting Friday night. Your guys' thoughts, though, getting back to right now, round number 1, and your overall impressions of what I think is a grand slam as far as the slate goes of games. We have 3, 4, maybe even 5 contests, Chris, that should come right down to the wire. Really high pace and really high energy here starting Friday night at 7 p.m.
Yeah, a lot of awesome matchups on Friday night. I think you guys probably was looking at Centennial and Sarah. That should be a good one. A lot of athletes in that game, a lot of future Division I guys in that game. And then take a look at the rematch of Mater Dei Westlake, a 1-point game in the regular season that Mater Dei won 28-27. I think Santa Margarita Crespi is going to be a good one. Same thing goes for Long Beach Poly and Fairlight. So, grand slam, and you hit the nail on the head right there with that one, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I know it's what most people predict, St. John Bosco and Mater Dei to be the final 2 this year, the same way that it was last season. But, Dan, if there is a ball club that hoists that Pac-5 trophy, it's not the Monarchs and it's not the Braves. Who is that ball club and why?
Corona Centennial, and it's because of that offense. It's super high scoring. They could rack up points against everybody. It's a matter of whether their defense can stop anybody. And if you're eliminating Bosco Mater Dei, well, they come into the picture automatically. So they're my third place. But if they had a chance, I'd have to give it to them.
Yeah, that's a great point. You take a look at round number 2. If they're able to squeak by the second round of the playoffs when they take on the Monarchs, then it would be Corona Centennial and J. Sarah, a ball club that struggles defensively. And Corona Centennial only has to outscore them in order to reach the final 2. And you never know. St. John Bosco hasn't faced Corona Centennial in numerous years. I think that's a great point where, Chris, I would like to get your impressions too. Corona Centennial we mentioned last year, this year as well, they can score points literally at will, and they could destroy teams defensively.
Yeah, I think a Centennial Bosco matchup would be scary for Bosco's defense. that really just wasn't consistent all year long.
All year.
And I think the offense would create a lot of problems for St. John Bosco's defense. Centennial's got some big receivers. They move very fast in their offensive tempo. J.J. Taylor, very similar to Sean McGrew at the tailback spot. But I think that St. John Bosco's offense is just a little bit better than Corona Centennial. And a tweet that Eric Sonheimer sent out a couple of days ago, he said, if you want to beat St. John Bosco in the playoffs, you're going to have to outscore them. And I just wouldn't see Corona Centennial being able to outscore Bosco. I think it'd be a very similar game to last year's 70-49 Bosco win.
Maybe even more points, though. If that number one defense in the country gave up 49, you can only imagine what 10 of 11 starters gone for Bosco would do. And my personal opinion is that even though Centennial lost their quarterback and halfback from last year, that dominant duo for the Huskies, you take a look at what Centennial has to work with, and it's still an all-star receiving core. And for Bosco, defensively, they have played flat-out atrocious. Dan, if they're able to play Bosco, would you at all be scared of the Braves being able to contest with them in that game?
I'm scared to contest with anybody. The only team they lost to is the number one team in the country. So if they were to come down to that, no way. Bosco, for some reason, somehow their magic has taken place in the fourth quarter when it most matters. They've gotten away with throwing just an interception here or an interception there, just two. And it seems like it's never enough. You're going to have to make Bosco turn over the ball more than once, it seems like.
Well, along with Corona Centennial, it's also Jay Sharon. Don't forget about Long Beach Poly. Those are the teams to look out for in the high school Pac-5 playoffs, the toughest division in the Southern California area. But as we all promise here on The Discussion, another recap of junior college, where now it's the Riverside Tigers that have clinched the National Central Conference and the number one overall seed. Meanwhile, Mount Sac very well could be the 2, Fullerton rounding it out at 3, and then bringing up the rear at the number 4 spot is Ventura College. And what we very well could see is the Tigers take on Ventura College next week. Meanwhile, Mount Sac and Fullerton will square off for the first time this year. And Chris, we'll start off with your impressions of Southern California, what I think is a couple of matchups that very well could be won by the top 2 teams in the state.
Yeah, I think there's a big discrepancy between Mount Sac and Riverside, and then you talk about Fullerton and Ventura. I mean, heck, Mount Sac beat both of the teams by 24 points. They beat Ventura up at their place 27-3, and they took care of Fullerton 34-10 at home. I think Fullerton and Ventura, they both improved since early on in the season. Mount Sac played them week 2 and week 3, but at the end of the day, I think the Mounties are just more dominant on both sides of the ball. Same thing goes for Riverside, and we'll get that rematch in the jungle.
Yeah, Riverside and Mount Sac. Dan, your impressions of the playoffs, it's 1 week away. Riverside should take on Ventura College. Meanwhile, we very well could be looking at a Mount Sac rematch against Riverside. If everything works out, if both teams take care of business, 2.5 weeks from tonight, it'll be the Tigers and the Mounties. Winner moves on to the state championship game.
That'll be cool if they do meet up again for that rematch, because Mount Sac is licking their chops about that one. But about Riverside, Ventura's kind of, you got to respect them. They come into the playoffs with the 5-0 record in their own league, so Riverside's got to be careful. It could be that trap game that everybody likes to label.
Yeah, in the playoffs, a number of games, including what very well could be the first round against Ventura, would be another day game. We all remember the first afternoon game of the season when Riverside lost to unranked Grossmont College. Out of the North, and you have been very vocal about this, Dan, your thoughts about who should be the number one team and who either Riverside or Mount Sac could meet up with in the state championship game. You've been talking about American River, but San Mateo and San Francisco are in the mix as well.
Wow, you're putting me on the spot because there's a lot of teams. There's also San Francisco, Santa Rosa, and then Butte's undefeated in their league. So there's a team. And I wouldn't be able to tell you right now who's number one. Just based on just looking at their each individual league, I can only tell you that there's a there's at least 6 teams that could probably compete, and there's still another week